Hi, Kathryn here with CircleArtDesigns.com. Today we are doing Caribbean Blue Dangle Earrings kits for Friday Kits Day. So let's get started. Aren't these just a beautiful set of dangle earrings? Everything you need to make this pair of dangle earrings will be in the kit, except for some glue and of course your tools. Now in the kit you should find 2 of your beading hoops, 20 silver spacers, 10 for each side, 10 of your eye pins, 5 for each earring, 8 24 gauge head pins, the small silver ones. You will need 4 for each earring, 4 of your oval jump rings, 2 for each earring. I love using these oval jump rings because if you get them closed really well, they're hard to pull apart by accident. And you should have 46 of the 3mm cube beads for each earring and an extra 4 for each earring for the dangle, making a total of 100. Now because this is a mix, I would separate these cube beads out to see exactly how many of each color I had before I decided on the pattern. I wish I had done that. Now, if you've never worked with these beading hoops before, turn it over and you will see on the back side that there's 2 little spaces where the wire goes in. One side, if you look carefully, will be crimped. Do not pull on that side. You will pull on the opposite side to take the wire gently out of the tube so that you can bead on it. Once we have finished the beading part, we will put a little bit of superglue gel on the end of that wire and slip it back into the tube and let it dry and crimp it. But let's get started with our dangles. Now, one of the problems I ran into is I made the first earring before I counted on what I had for the second earring. Please don't make that mistake, but it worked out okay. Now we will be adding 1 cube for each one of our dangles, starting on the outside and moving towards the middle. So for that first dangle, we will have 2 silver spacers and 6 cubes. For the next one, we will have 2 of the silver spacers and 7 of the cubes. For our middle dangle, we will have the 2 silver spacers and we will have 8 of the 3mm cubes. Then it's just a matter of going backwards. The next one will have 2 spacers and 7 cubes. And the last one will have 2 spacers and 6 cubes. So out of your 100 beads, divide them up into 2 piles. Take 4 beads out of the pile for the wrapped loop centers. Then you're going to take 12 out of the pile to actually put on the beading frame on that hoop. And the rest will be for your dangles. Now decide what your pattern's going to be. And I will go ahead and do the same thing to that second group. Okay, now that that's done, let's go ahead and get started. Take one of your eye pins, and after you make sure it's as straight as you can get it, put on one of your spacers. Now, using the pattern you have laid out, go ahead and add 6 of the cubes, and then another silver spacer. While we're doing our first beaded dangle, would you go ahead and hit the like button on this video and add a comment? It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Now this is the pattern I have decided to go with because, like I said, I'm matching my other earring. From this point on, we will just add a bead. Now this is the fun part for me. Taking your straight nose pliers and holding the tip of your eye pin at the tip of your pliers, start turning in small increments your eye pin down till it reaches your first bead. This will make a real pretty looped decorative end. Now once you turn the eye pin all the way down till it touches the bead, then holding it in your straight nose pliers, move it back towards the center of that first bead so that everything lines up vertical, or as vertical as you can get it. And now we're on to the second one. Now remember, the second one we're going to add one, so this will be number 7. You will use 7. Think about your pattern and what you're going to put on as your top bead or your bottom bead. You can add a bead to the top or the bottom, but remember, we're putting these on towards the already made loop. That's going to be our top, and the ones we're turning will be the decorative bottom. I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Right now, as I'm editing this video, I think it's pushing 100 outside, and I had to go into the living room and turn on the room cooler because the air conditioning wasn't getting it done. So when I set out my pattern, I put my 8 out first and decided what I wanted that pattern to be. And then I decided to take a bead off at the bottom for each of the dangles that go towards the outside, and I laid those out. I have to tell you, some of them I ran out of because I did not set that pattern up first, but it ended up looking beautiful. And you know, this would be beautiful just random itself. I just don't do random well. Okay, so now we're going to practice turning that decorative loop again. Remember, to get it, I say the tip, but to be real honest, it really depends how big you want your loop at the bottom. The point is to catch it with nothing hanging out so that you're just at the tip of that wire, and begin those tiny little turns until you get it all the way down to your bead. And now we're going to do the middle one, and this will be our longest. It will be number 8. So if you've laid out your pattern, all you have to do is put it on and turn it at the bottom. I forgot about that. Here's some cool information about doing these dangles. When you lay them out ahead of time, if you take off from the bottom, it's going to look very different than if you take off from the top. Or what if you took off a bead in the middle? Whatever you do, it's going to change your pattern. So play with it before you start. Another really neat thing you could do is you could make them all the 6 beads, the 6 cubes, and that will completely change the look of the earring. So play with it. Don't just do it the way I do it. Okay, I'm stuck on the takeoff because I started the first one in the middle and then took off on the design. But what I really mean to say is if you put one on the top, it will change the design from if you put one on the bottom. Also, when you're turning this loop, know that the more beads you have on your eye pin, the less wire you have to turn, and that's okay. It still looks amazing. Sorry, lost my count. Now when I filmed this, My workspace is in the middle of my living room, and sometimes people are coming in and out, and I lose count. And that's exactly what happened here. My husband came through, he asked me a question, and when I got back to what I was doing, I'd forgotten where I was in the project. Does that ever happen to you? And now we're going to practice turning that decorative loop again. Remember, don't worry that you're not getting as many loops because you have just a small amount of wire to use. I just love the look of these cubes. I had never heard of them before and ran across them quite by accident. When I went to get some more, this lady told me, oh, they've been out for a long time and I don't carry them much anymore. But you know what? I hope she starts carrying them again. Okay, I'm going to speed this up as we finish making the dangles. Just 2 more to go. There we have it. On to the next step. Now for the next step, take out the 12 beads you've chosen to go on your beading loop. Lay them in the pattern that you want them to go on. If you notice, my pattern has a set of 4 and a set of 4. These will go on either side of the dangles. Then the one I have up at the top is the pattern that's going to go between each of the dangles. Lay that out. Now remember what we talked about with this beading loop? Using the side that is not crimped. That will be the side with no lines on the back. Gently pull that wire out and we're ready to start beading. Now starting at the far side of your beading pattern, go ahead and put on your first 4 cubes. My beads are acting like little jumping beads. Now, no matter how tempting it is to take your fingers and pull that hoop apart because it just will not stay opened, please don't do that. This is not a jump ring. It will tear it up. Now we're ready for the center once your 4 beads are on. The next thing to go on will be your 6 count dangle, then a cube, then your 7 count dangle, then a cube, then your 8 count dangle, then a cube, and so on. I'm going to speed this section up a bit, but you get the gist of it. With those 4 in the middle, put a dangle and a cube and a dangle and a cube until you get all your dangles on, and then we're going to put the last 4 of the cubes on. Sorry, my hands have wandered off the mat again. They'll come back up in just a minute. And there we have it, and it's ready to close it up. Now I am using the super glue gel because it's a little more forgiving than regular super glue. It has a little longer drying time, so that if you don't get it exactly where you want it, it is possible to pull it apart and put it back together. It does not take a lot, just a little bit on the tip of the wire, and then go ahead and insert it into the little channel. But remember that you want to see just the tip of that wire at the other end of your channel so that you know you have gotten it in far enough. Now once that is in, go ahead and take your chain nose pliers, and just like you would on any of your beading wire, mash down the end with those chain nose pliers to crimp it. Then you can go to the other end and crimp it. Just make sure you don't catch any super glue. And then you're going to put this to one side and let it dry. So while we begin to let this set up, it takes a full 24 hours to be completely dry, but it'll set up pretty quickly. Go ahead and pull out the 4 cubes that you had for the center of the earring and those little silver 24 gauge head pins. For these little dangles, we will need a set of straight nose pliers and either a set of curved nose or chain nose pliers to wrap these with. We're wrapping them because these wires are so thin that I would be afraid even with turning them down, they would pull apart. So putting your first cube on, take and hold the wire right up against the cube with your straight nose pliers, and with your finger bend a U-loop around the head pin around the straight nose pliers. Now you want to turn your straight nose pliers where that loop is now at the bottom so that you can wrap around your head pin. Taking your chain nose pliers, take the tip of that little head pin and begin to wrap it around itself. Just like that. And then do all 4 of them and we'll be ready for the next step. Now once you get all 4 of them done, then go back and clip the little tails you have on each one of them left over from wire wrapping. Then take your chain nose pliers and tuck those little tails in. It's kind of hard because they're teeny tiny little beads, but it's worth it because you don't want it to catch on anything. Now we want to pull out 2 of our oval jump rings. Taking 2 chain nose pliers or a chain nose and curved nose, it doesn't really matter. You want to hold each end of that oval jump ring with a set of pliers. And do you see back it up if you missed it, but there's a little slit in the top. You want to keep that at the top, holding both sides. Twist a wrist and open that jump ring. Now we're going to slip on all 4 of our little wrapped cubes. Then taking our beading loop, we're going to turn the back facing us. And you're going to slip one end of that oval jump ring through the little hole in the center so that the back of the jump ring and the back of the beading loop will be together. And then we're going to close that beading loop. Now there might be an easy way to get that oval jump ring into that little bitty round hole, but I have never found the easy way. You just have to kind of work with it until you get it through the hole, and then go ahead and close the loop. And now we're ready to add the earring wire to our beading loop. So take out your other jump ring, and we're going to open it exactly the same way we did before. Oop, I forgot a step. Now I like my earrings to face forward, so that means my loop on my ear wire and my loop on my beading wire have to be the exact same direction. So I take my chain nose pliers and very gently turn that loop on my beading wire so that it's facing the same direction as the loop on my beading wire. And now I can add my jump ring. Thank you so much for joining me today for Friday Kits Day. The kits are up in the store, and I will leave a link to them online. I hope that you have an amazing beading day of your own, and I will see you next Friday for Kits Day. Pictures to follow. Have a blessed day and a great weekend. Kathryn, circleartdesigns.square.site.